sure people do have sexual relationships
Well,
but
I
like,
mean, eating disorder or no eating disorder, that's a whole other topic.
True.
But I mean, you can have sex, right?
you can have sex,
I
but
mean,
like
it's like doing anything, but it's how much I'm allowing myself to feel, right?
the idea of being cut off at the neck
Yeah.
in your eating disorder is the thing that makes the most sense to me, just conceptually,
Yeah.
is that like your body can do whatever your
body
does,
can do many things.
but you are not connected to the experience of that.
Right. And two people know. The thing is that in a very close relationship, two people know, unless, I mean, even without an eating disorder, people do relationship in a disconnected way.
Right.
You
Right.
know? And
Yeah.
then when you put an eating disorder, it's just the eating disorder is a more, I don't know, a thing with a name. But sometimes people do relationship in a disconnected way, even without a thing, without a name, with a name. Right?
Plenty of people have
Because
disconnected
many
relationships.
of us
Yeah.
as people live in our bodies in a disconnected way.
Right.
And I would have disconnected for many different reasons. But feelings, you know, making peace with feelings, allowing feelings to pass through is actually an elevated skill. And it's something that I have to, either, you know, you can learn it like a language from a parent who knew how to do that and who was very attuned, but that's kind of not that common. So, you know, then the next best thing is I can go for therapy and kind of learn, or other things, right? Other ways, some body work or many other ways, but I'm just putting that all under the category of therapy, which is me going and learning, oh, how do I get connected with myself? What does this connected thing mean? You know, I find that we use these words, right? Relationship, connection, boundaries, you know, boundaries and all of that, but it's actually feeling it in the body. And actually it's, you know it when you feel it, you don't know it till you feel it.
That is exactly right. That is exactly right. You do not know it until you have felt it. And the minute you feel it, you can't unsee that. You can't unfeel that. And you're like, this is what a connection to an emotion that is in my body that I'm feeling feels like. You can't do that until you're much more connected to yourself. So,
you know, long story short, when you say, can you do a relationship with an eating disorder? Many people do. Sometimes people do relationship in a half disconnected way and it feels safe to both parties. So again, the word working, when we say a relationship works, it depends, you know, like when we say
define
working, works is if both those people agree to that contract.
Right. Yeah.
When it becomes a little sticky, again, is if that couple have children. So children come along, and I always, you know, when I work with couples, I'll say, you can make whatever contract you want between the two of you, because I think a relationship exists between two people. Two people can make any kind of funny contract. And if it works for them, it works for them. It's not for me to say it's right or wrong. Mm-hmm. But when children come into the relationship, children come with a very organic range of emotions. And we know that it doesn't matter what culture, what country, children have certain needs. And those are basic.
Yeah.
So presence, a parent being present to a child and knowing how to be with a child when the child is going through the whole range of emotions. So, and children have personalities. So I have to be pretty nimble and flexible as a parent to meet the child where they are and not ask the child to extend themselves to meet me, right? This is where it gets funny. Once we bring children into the relationship, this is where it starts getting wonky and
it is. Yeah.
Things don't work.
Yeah. And you know, even additionally, when you think about people that have eating disorders and, you know, women specifically, they're like, well, you know, they have a husband and they have kids. So like their body is working well enough to reproduce or whatever it is. But like, I have a really hard time imagining what it is like to be a person in that scenario, because I could never kind of force myself to play out that depth of an experience, being that disconnected, it never worked for me. And so it's always been really interesting to me that some people can maintain this visible, totally normal, quote unquote, existence and keep that eating disorder just like as their little sidekick through the whole thing.
You know, when an eating disorder comes into your life, early teenage, if you think about it, it's the only way I have known my adult body.
Correct. Yeah.
So early teenage, I get afraid of my body, my changing body, and I start trying to control it. And when I kind of land, when this teenage puberty morphing into an adult metamorphosis ends, I land into my adult body at between 20 and 25, thinking that the only reason my body is this way is because I have controlled it all through teenage.
That's right. Yeah.
So I cannot rest easily in this body. There is no ease. I have to continue controlling it, because if I let go, if I do something, that early teenage fear that something is going to go out of control stays with me. So in a way, I'm frozen in time. I am frozen in, my early teenage experience.
Yeah.
And then I'm controlling, right? And there is no trust to let go of it. And kind of this is what I tell people, you have no experience of your body, of what it might have been like, felt like. And when I say your body, it's not just the living inside the body, it's also my likes and dislikes.
That's right.
Because, somewhere mid-teenage, I start concocting these ideas, right? That I can't eat carbohydrates. I cannot, maybe I'll say I'm gluten-free. Nowadays it's easy.
I just don't like bagels. I just don't like
it
bagels.
Really makes my stomach hurt. And, if I eat sugar, I get a headache. And that's just me, And, and if I own these things, if I say I can't eat blueberries because, you have no idea what's going to happen to me if I eat blueberries. And we'll all have to agree because, I don't know. I don't live in your body, right?
Right. That's right. Yeah. Everybody else just kind of has to be complicit in the delusion of your quote unquote preferences.
Or I will have to tell you that you're being ridiculous, right?
And that I think is actually that's the relationship thing, is that so few partners I can imagine are unwilling to make that leap of like, this is ridiculous and I cannot watch this anymore. Yeah. I cannot sit by and do this with you in this destruction anymore. Yeah. I love you too much to do that. That I think happens probably more rarely.
Well, we have to take care of the relationship, right? I'm afraid because, as we know, when you have a protected behavior, right? I kind of think about it's helpful for me to think when I work with somebody and point out to them how protective they are, right? Protective of the spin bike, protective of, I can't talk about that, right? Yeah. And I can feel the push when I say, can we talk about the exercise? Can we talk about, the fact that we haven't introduced any carbs? Can we talk about, and I can feel the pushback, right? Yeah. So as the therapist, I can say, if we don't talk about this, this is going to be the place where all progress will stop, right?
Yeah,
it stops over there. And what are we most scared of? The person is not being difficult. The person is just saying, I am petrified of doing this thing. This is the place, this is the line where I'm petrified. Right?
This is where I get to. Yeah, I think the first time I ever cried in therapy, this was back when Adele was my therapist. And the first time that I ever really had like kind of a meltdown was when she asked me to decrease my exercise the first time. Yes, she was like, what if we took one day?
Exercise is such a good friend.
What if we took one day off? And I just vibrating, like couldn't cope kind of a thing. And it's looking at those really sticky spots that forces you to address like what is going on and what do we actually really need to change. So I want to ask, because I don't have a lot of data on who the audience is of this podcast, but I would imagine especially because everybody knows somebody that's had an eating disorder, period. I don't care if you know about it or you don't know about it, you know somebody, at least a few people you know and you've encountered that have had this. And you've been in a relationship with one, or maybe you're dating somebody and you're not sure what exactly is going on with them. If you're in a relationship with somebody, where are our flags that something is going on to bring us from this, I actually don't see it, to I see it? And part of me is like, it depends how long you've been with somebody. In my experience, the reason that the sort of avoiding type of relationships, or the relationship light, as you said, the reason that those work is that you can go off and do stuff on your own and then only show up to the relationship for periods of it. So it's difficult to see it when you're not with somebody quite continuously for a period of time. Yeah. Like I used to be terrified of overnights, to go on trips with guys, like anything that was more than 18 hours or something like that. I'm like, I can't, because where will I fit all of these other things I need to do? So what are we looking for as a partner of someone that we're potentially questioning whether they're struggling?
Yeah, so I'll answer it in a roundabout way, as I always do. I think the first thought that comes to me is, one of the comments I make is, we have lost sight of where too thin is. Like, oh, that is too thin. So me as a clinician, when I'm walking around, I kind of, in the airport, in the somewhere, I look at somebody and I'm like, oh, that is too thin. And I know something is going on, because now at this point I have like eating disorder eyes.
Oh my God, same. I just walk around and I'm like,
yes. And all my eating disorder clients know when they see something. But I would say generally, it's hard for people to know how much is too thin. Because I see very thin people, and sometimes even parents, they're like, oh, she lost some weight. But, you don't know where the line is to say that this is too bad.
Right.
The other thing that makes it hard is, it's common for women to just eat salads. Like there is what we call disordered eating that doesn't quite fall into a diagnosis, right? Or maybe you have an eating disorder, but it's not diagnosed yet.
Yeah.
So, but it's understood. Everyone is dieting. There's a new diet that comes along every so often, right? It's, it's intermittent fasting. Then it's the keto diet. Then it's something, because, and I look upon clean all diets. Eating. Yeah. And I think about all diets as a variation of, because the eating disorder is a formula. So every single person who has an eating disorder, when I ask them, they have a subjective formula. I can't eat this, I can't eat that, I have to eat this at 12 o'clock, I cannot eat anything during the day, and if we just kind of loosen up those rules, they become intermittent fasting, they become, a keto diet, they become all of those other diets.
Socially acceptable disordered patterns.
I don't know what's happening with Dr. Bernstein these days, but I don't hear much. But, B12 shots, like 500 calories and B12 shots, stuff like that. I don't do this, I can't do that. And often, like, it's so ingrained that, it's hard to tell that whether the person is dieting or whether the person has a full-on eating disorder, right? When you see only bits and pieces of it, and people don't know what an eating disorder is. So, the most obvious thing is if somebody loses weight, if somebody has funny eating patterns, but that is hard, because people have, I don't know how many people really are intuitive
eaters, right? These like unicorn
right?
people, well, people like you, but who I consider unicorns, because lots of people have this sort of idea of, oh, this is healthy, this is not, this is good, this is bad, blah, 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 blah. That's so common that it's hard for people to identify disorder when it's there.
And I think, this thing that you talked about, I can't do an overnight trip. So as the relationship gets closer, and as we are expected to spend more time together, if somebody is having difficulty spending that time continuously, right? I have to have my windows. And then, the fundamental thing I say about eating disorders is, it's not even about eating the muffin or not. It's actually about the rigidity. My rules start coming out. Right. Yeah. I have to have this private time to do the things that I have to do or we have to.
Yeah, like
right?
if we've walked all day,
Yeah.
then I am okay to stop for a muffin with you. Look
Yeah.
at how healthy and balanced and not disordered I am. But if we were sitting all day
Yeah.
and I wouldn't do that, there's a red flag.
But saying things like, I ate a muffin, it's going to go straight to my hips. Oh my God, I didn't exercise today. These are normalized.
They are, but they shouldn't be. Those should be the red
we
flags.
can't actually diagnose everyone who says stuff like that.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So it is actually really, really hard. I would say that at some point when we get really, really close and we start spending time together and life together, I'm going to say it that way,
Yep.
the rigidity will show up.
You will see the rigidity. I
The
think
rigidity
the
will
word
come out.
rigidity is pretty much, if you were going to answer this one question in one word, it would be rigidity.
Yeah.
And the avoidance that kind of comes with
Yeah.
rigidity when you push against it, when you knock up against those edges that you're talking about those hard things that are too difficult for somebody in this to do, you will notice.
Yeah.
You will maybe get a reaction. You will maybe see them run away or get further away from you. If you bring something up or a question and it becomes a big issue, I think those are things that we would look to for that.
The other thing I was going to say is, I hear a lot about mothers who don't sit down at the table. So a mom might cook a meal, but not sit down at the table and eat a full meal, being busy. I'm very busy. So
I'm just very busy.
I hear this word busy a lot, like we're busy as a family. I'm busy. And, busy in North America is understood as a good thing. The more busy you are, the more productive you are. And productive is definitely a good thing. But productive, again, this is quite cliche, but it's actually true. It's my relationship with the doing rather than being, right? And I'm going to say being easy, being easy in my body, even if I'm not productive today, being easy in my life. And there is no ease when someone has an eating disorder.
Yeah, that's
I think
right.
that's what I would say is there is no ease, and flexibility suffers and ease suffers.
Yeah.
And I am always at dis-ease. I am uneasy because I'm thinking about the next time I can weigh myself, the next time I can, go running, the next time I can skip a meal.
What
So
I ate,
I'm
what I'm about to eat, all of these things.
There is a lot of calculation going on in the mind. And at some point when the relationship gets close enough, the calculation is going to come out.
And you can't avoid it forever. That's the thing. If the partner in question who is wondering about is my girlfriend or is my partner dealing with some of this, if you are a truly connected person, you will know, right? Like you will know, you will be able to identify this rigidity and it will come through. The busy, the I ate before I came, or I only do coffees, not happy hours, or let's not go for dinner, let's just go to a movie. Oh, but no popcorn for me, thanks. I actually just ate. These are all like textbook examples of I'm keeping my little room of my eating disorder closed.
I don't think that people know that an eating disorder equates to me being disconnected from my body, right?
Okay.
So
let's
I
talk about
might be
that.
like, oh, Maddie's just silly. She's that way. Oh, did you get your salad? We might joke about it, but I don't know that's actually part of the bigger issue is that I'm living in my body disconnected. The function of an eating disorder is to manage my emotions.
Right.
Right? The function of alcohol, the function of cocaine is actually my difficulty with my emotions in my body. So it has nothing to do with liking you or disliking you or liking a relationship or anything. It's just a plain fact, if we bring it down, that it's hard for me to do relationship with somebody, which is being with somebody, being easy with somebody, right? You and me looking out the window and thinking, oh, what shall we do today? And having an easy energy about it because I am not at ease with myself. I have not graduated into my adult body with ease to do adult things.
Right.
So, I mean, sometimes I'm like, I get when a 20-year-old is fighting with her parents about being an adult, so she doesn't have to share any information. I'm like, if you can't feed yourself, right? If we need a whole program to feed you,
Yeah,
we're
like,
not
are you
quite
an adult?
we're not quite in an adult place. I mean, I get that you're 20, but we're not quite doing adulting things.
I was 32.
'Cause we can't
relearning
eat.
how to feed
Yeah.
myself and feeling like such an idiot about it, right? Being like,
Yeah.
you're a 32-year-old woman
Yeah.
who doesn't know how to feed herself.
Yeah.
What is going on?
Let's just put in there that it has nothing to do with smartness, right?
Right.
We're very, very smart.
Right.
Like sometimes, I was explaining to a couple of parents yesterday that I have adult clients who go out there and do a great job at whatever it is the job is, but nobody knows that you're putting your last ounce of energy into that, coming home and crashing, right?
100%.
Coming home, and I come home into the arms of my eating disorder because that's where I find comfort
That's right.
or reassurance.
That's right.
It might not be comfort, it's reassurance.
Yeah. I think that's why also the whole like relationship while having an eating disorder thing is like somewhat baffling to me because of the energy that a relationship
Yep.
takes.
Yep.
And the amount of energy I know that I have and have not had.
But I can train you to expect less from me.
If you are, yeah,
I can,
that's true.
I will train you very early so
Ooh,
contracts.
that's gross. Yes, no, I can identify
Right?
that. I've definitely
But
done that. And like,
contracts-
look, this is all that you're getting, okay?
Yeah, but you might not even say it that way, right?
Yeah.
So a contract in a relationship is set very, very early. Long ago I read somewhere that the contract in a relationship is set in the first week, and then we just have repetitions of that contract, right? It's
interesting.
very quick. It's very unspoken. It's very quick. But we just learn how to adjust around each other. Right? So I pick up on your energy. It's very unspoken. And then where you say no and where you say yes. In those early days, we're not actually noticing this, but it kind of gets set. And slowly, I just learned that there are some things I can ask of you. And, some things, if I ask of you, you get prickly, so I back off,
Right.
And
Right.
so we kind of get trained into certain things. And I think people get trained into how to be and what not to talk about. Because if I ask about that, or if I talk about this, or I don't know, you get prickly, so I'll back off.
Yeah. If somebody is in a relationship with somebody that has an eating disorder, let's start here with the maybe it's gone unaddressed. They're not really in recovery.
Yeah.
What does one do as a partner to support, or is it possible?
It's really tricky.
It's a really tricky question.
It's really tricky. So when I get somebody who is in a relationship, in a partnership, I will inquire for two reasons. The eating disorder starts off often, almost always, before the partner comes into the picture. But what goes on with the partner will have a maintaining effect. If the person is in a relationship, there is a maintaining of the relationship. Either the partner is not asking any questions about it, therefore the eating disorder is allowed to exist, or the partner might be, if there is, let's say this relationship is having difficulty and I'm afraid to leave the relationship, I'm just afraid to take action of that kind. I need the eating disorder to manage my relationship, manage my emotions in this difficult relationship. Mm-hmm. Or it stokes the fire of my eating disorder, right? It makes me more anxious. So the eating disorder is in proportion to my anxiety. It goes up and down. It's like a code. So, but there is a maintaining factor in the relationship. So I'm curious about how the relationship is surviving and is, kind of maintaining. I'm just using that word, but there is room for this, or there is need for this eating disorder in this relationship. So this is where I inquire about the partner. Then I bring the partner in. When I bring a partner in, let's say in the most constructive case, we'll start there. In a case where it really works well, right?
Let's go with that.
I am doing some psychoeducation with the partner. And many people, sometimes unconsciously think, oh, this is the relationship of the day. You're in a couple relationship, so your partner can support you. I have a tone when I say that. The partner, in my opinion, no, because the partner will now not be a partner anymore. As soon as the partner steps into support, they will become either the parent.
Yeah.
And that's going to destroy the partner relationship because, yeah. And they will have to police.
Yeah. So you've now gone from partner to parent and authority.
Yes.
And the relationship can't withstand that.
Consider this. I will, and I can continue to be in the child place.
As the person with the eating disorder who is in the child place already, because that's very much where the eating disorder keeps you, is in a very child place. Then you're bumping up against parent asking you to do things. Right. Maybe you're then hiding things from that partner because you're like, I didn't use the spin bike today while you were at work, and stop policing my behavior.
It's actually quite satisfying. It's another one cocoon. So now I'm pushing and pulling with my partner, and we're, squabbling over a salad, or, when the conversation is stuck to a salad, a burger, how many calories are there in an egg, you have to eat this, we're in the cocoon.
Right.
We're in the cocoon, and this relationship is going to stay in a cocoon. Nothing and nobody is going to mature into adulthood.
Everybody is now stuck in the eating disorder cocoon place. Yeah.
So when there is a partner, I bring them in, I do some psychoeducation, and I talk about this, and I say the recovery of this person, this is in her hands. Right. She has some work to do, and this is in her hands. I'm going to say honestly, I think it's a really, really difficult position to be a partner, because a partner is coming in for something.
Yeah.
I'm entering a partnership for something. So the scary part for a partner is, if I step into my expectations, this relationship is possibly not going to last.
Because this person, this eating disordered person, has nothing to give you at this point. The reciprocity of that contract is not available to you.
Yes.
And so then that puts you even further into the parent position because, as you have taught me, there is one scenario where one person gets to be entirely demanding and one person gets to be entirely demanded of, and that's a parent-child relationship. And that doesn't fit anywhere else.
Good job, Maddie.
Thank you so much. What you're doing is working.
Yes.
You really had your work cut out for you, but I am picking these things up. But you can't have your partner turn into your parent in that way. And so it saddens me to say these types of things or to have formed these opinions about things where my gut tells me that this isn't possible to do very well.
Not in the way you want to do
Not
it,
in the way that you wish it would be. Where I'm just like your cheerleader and I have you back and we're going to do this eating disorder thing together. We're going to take this on. I'm like, I don't know.
Long ago when I worked in a shelter, women would come in with children, and then when we did the intake, they would say, "Oh, but our children don't know." We would fight, or something would happen after they went to bed, right? And so when we think about an eating disorder or a mom having an eating disorder, and sometimes a dad, it sets the tone of the house. The children, it's the atmosphere in the house, the rigidity, the unease, the dis-ease. It sets the tone, and the children can feel the place where you bump into a wall with mom, right? Or with dad. We talk about, our conversation is a little towards the women's side because there are less men with an eating disorder, or maybe there are men out there, but it's not as declared. It's kind of a little different because
we got some work to do in the men's space about defining what that looks like, I think.
Men often, it's not about weight. It is, very connected to what happened and emotions and all of that. And men will often say, I don't have an issue with gaining weight, but it might be about other things.
Right.
So it's a little different. It's so much attached to weight and shape for women. I was just thinking it's not quite about being beautiful. It's how you feel your body, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, but yeah.
It's dire. It's dire to try to do relationship and have an eating disorder be any part of it. I genuinely don't know how it could go well.
So, the other question then people will say is, oh, must I wait to be completely done to have a relationship?
Ooh, yes. Please tell me, because that's my
Well,
question.
Because that's the other question, right? So if I'm, say, I don't know, I'm just speaking on 35 years old and I have an eating disorder, and it's going to take a while for me to work my way out of this, right? Because earlier I was thinking it's unfair on a partner because the eating disorder, the time for recovery is keeping pace with my anxiety. So when I can live in my adult body and I can build small successes and start trusting those small successes, and then I slowly walk my way out. But as we know, that could take 5 years. Mm-hmm. That could take 7 years, right? And we're talking best case scenario, right?
Yeah.
Like 2 years, 5 years. And so a partner kind of has to contract to that. A partner has to say, okay, fine, I'm going to wait while all of this is happening. And many of my needs are not met.
Right.
Till someday, and not fully sure if this is going to happen.
Right. Like you don't
right?
even know if this person is going to.
Because the truth is, sustaining a relationship while sustaining an eating disorder or choosing to let go of it in and of itself creates a lot of anxiety. Yeah. And my resource in anxiety is going to my eating disorder.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So trying to figure this out while living in a relationship is kind of pretty hard. So then when I think about it, I'm like, okay, so does somebody, because this question has been asked to me, and I'm like, the honest thing is, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
I don't actually know what the real answer is. Well, if you start a relationship, are you going to tell the person? Sometimes, people do. And then I kind of ask my client, I'm like, so what's the plan?
Like the person that has an eating disorder?
Yes. When are we going to inform this other person who is getting involved that, by the way, and even if you say there is an eating disorder, how much of an understanding does this other person have? How much do they know that it's going to interfere in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to say a lot of people don't.
They don't.
A lot of people start out with saying, oh, I love you so much and you have a problem. I'm going to support you.
Correct.
With no idea that, by the way, my eating disorder is saying we don't need anybody's support. This is a very exclusive friendship.
Thank you so much, but
there
we actually don't
need room for, between me and my eating disorder. The eating disorder is like, I'm sorry, okay, you're going to bring another person into this, and what's our deal? Like, this is,
Yeah, your eating disorder is pretty monogamous. So
Yeah, pretty, very monogamous. Yeah.
It is. I think it really depends where you're at in recovery. I think you will know when you have a grasp on a bit of normalcy in your life, a normal pattern, a desire to actually be well, instead of white knuckling recovery and being like, I'm just going through the motions. That's still too much of an anxious place to like bring in this whole other human being into your life and try to navigate relationship at that point. If you've reached a point in your recovery where you can sort of be among and navigate the world and be flexible and have that and still acknowledge, like, yes, maybe I still struggle with exercise, or maybe I still have some default foods that I really go to, and maybe I need to get a little bit more outside my box. Maybe I'm not fully baked, but I'm at least as capable and sturdy in my recovery journey to begin to introduce a bit of normalcy. Because that's kind of where I feel like I'm at, is that like I feel very good and solid about where I'm at in recovery and recovering. And I believe that it has opened up enough space in me to start to navigate things like relationship and to not have it be a derailing component, right? That sort of wherever your relationship is at, then you can, it can really send you flying back because it brings up a lot of emotions. But you have to be very honest about where you're at. And I think you need to tell people very quickly. I mean, it doesn't have to be on the first date, but like it definitely has been for me a lot of the time. I'm like, Cause like, what are we doing here? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm too old to be like, oh, let's just like play hard to get for like 3 weeks. And then maybe I'll just trickle in this eating disorder thing. Like, it's just not like, for me, it's like, I mean, I'm open enough about it, obviously, that like, for me, it's never going to be I'm going to skirt around this and maybe I'll tell you later. It's like, I'm very much like a first date. I'm going to tell you about this thing.
I have a thought that everybody understands when I say it. So often, people will ask me about intuitive eating, right? Oh, intuitive eating, like, is it something? Mm-hmm. And I have come to this way of saying, it doesn't make any sense unless I am friendly with my body.
Right.
Do I think about my body? If I say I am friends with my body, does that sound okay, right? And everyone who is not yet friends with their body know what that sounds like. And they will quickly say, oh, that sounds hard, right? Oh, I have to be friends with my body, right? So we're talking about, that's an easy way for me to say, I have to be easy in my body. And then I can be easy with somebody else. There is no way I can be easy with someone else when I'm not easy with myself. There is no way for sex to be what it's supposed to be when I can't be easy with my own body, right?
Right. Imagine, right? Like
it's
if
not.
you're so in your head at that
sometimes
point.
I tell people, the thing about sex is, for it to be good, you have to kind of let go. You have to know how to let go. Holding on, right? Rigidity is all about holding on and compartmentalizing. There is no way it's going to happen if we're doing it with all these compartments.
Right.
So again, my teacher Susie, she'll talk about, but in the way I'm trained, we'll kind of talk about this statement of, I accept you exactly as you are. In a couple relationship, I accept you exactly as you are because you're a package, right? But prior to saying that, I'm thinking, I accept myself exactly as I am, right? Yeah. If I know what that feeling is, to go and accept somebody exactly as you are, and for that to not be just, empty lip service, I have to know what it feels like to accept just as I am, right? I accept myself exactly as I am. I am at ease with myself, not because I have a six-pack,
No, right.
with my stretch marks, with my something, with some operation scar on my body, with my whatever curve I have, with my skin, with my funny nose. Yeah. I don't know. Because we're looking way beyond, I'm understanding life in a wider way.
Yeah.
And so then I can look at you and with your stretch marks and with your whatever and your bald head or your funny hair or your, brown spectacles, I don't know, whatever. I can accept you, or you eat octopus. I don't know, whatever it is.
For everything that you are and bring, because I have decided that I am good enough.
Yep.
I can now face you and say you are as well. And that's people say they want relationship.
Yep.
People always say they want relationship.
Yep.
That concept though, I think people will be like, oh shit, do I really want a relationship? Because like that's a lot. So relationship light is very compelling, I think, to people in action and in behavior. Relationship light is much easier than being like, nope, I've got to square with me and I've got to square with you.
When you find it, ease is such a word, right? When you find it, it's such a wonderful place. Yeah. It takes some work.
Yeah.
But this is kind of what we're aspiring to is I accept myself exactly as I am.
Yeah. Yeah. So to navigate that, a partner going through, I think generally it depends a lot. If they're like very in very strong recovery, then it's easy to be sort of just like aware.
Yeah.
Educating yourself, seeing a therapist yourself, really trying to understand what this person is going through or has been, like unpack their experience, get really, really curious about what it's like to be them. It requires such a degree of bravery, I think, to be able to come into those conversations, because every person with an eating disorder is different. Not everybody is going to be like, hello, first date, like, would you like to know my story? Like, not everybody will be there. Yeah. You have to be willing to sort of navigate a little bit of resistance and just this little kind of delicate dance into who are you and who am I. But bravery, vulnerability, and curiosity, I think, is some of the main things that I would say to somebody like, so you want to date somebody who had an eating disorder, do you? Here's what you should do. Those are the things that I would probably point to.
Yep. I don't want to open a whole other thing, but I'm just saying, the one thing I want to add is there is so much denial that goes along with an eating disorder. As with alcoholism, those kinds of things, there's so much denial that goes along. I'm trying to, if I have an eating disorder, I'm trying to minimize it, right? I'm trying to not think about it. I'm trying to minimize it. I'm trying to be as much among the normal people as I can, which is what makes the whole thing tricky.
Yeah.
But I just want to reiterate that idea, right? That I accept myself exactly as I am, and whatever work it takes to get me there. If I can be kind to myself, then I can be kind to another person who comes along without judgment and criticism. And then we can go and do whatever it is we want to do.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The only other thing that came to my mind when we were kind of talking about this, like push-pull and the denial and things like that, I think it could be tempting for partners in certain scenarios to be like, do this for me, recover for me for this relationship, or I won't stay with you unless you go get therapy.
Yep.
I'm curious as to your thoughts on that. Mine are, it doesn't feel like an incredibly sustainable way to do recovery in any context when you're doing it for someone else. It can kickstart someone into starting down that path, be like, okay, well, I'll get curious and I'll go to therapy because you made me, quote unquote. And then maybe they discover along the way that they're doing it for themselves. Great. But I think a lot of times, if your basis of and your foundation for recovery is, I have to do this for this person so they don't leave me, I think you're in for a world of trouble. But I'm curious as to your thoughts.
Well, it's mixed. I kind of think that often, when people first come to treatment, they are clear that they're not coming for themselves. I'm here for my parents. I'm here for my partner. I'm here for my children. I'm here for somebody. I don't really care what brings a person into therapy, because I'm like, you took a first step. Great. You're here now, right? And because there are a lot of other things that I want you to do. So, whatever brought you here. As in the case of most addictions, I think that, again, it goes to, I think that parents are in a position to stay with you no matter what you do. Partners are not obliged to stay. It's a breakable relationship.
Yeah.
And a lot of times partners don't.
Yeah.
Because, when the partner leans in to establish a boundary or support, sometimes it's easy to stay in that cocoon. I can fight with my partner, right? Then I can just, the battle itself becomes the relationship. The arguments, the something, the hiding, the whatever it is that goes on, that becomes the relationship. So the partner is in kind of a bind, a double bind relationship where if I lean in, that's a problem. If I lean out, it's not a relationship, so I don't know what to do. So I think it's fair for a partner to say, you need to get help because this is an investment.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say we forget that, when we engage another person's time, when we engage a relationship is me engaging someone else's time, energy, effort, right? And I should have some concept of that's what I'm doing. That person is, if that person is choosing to stay with me, it's an investment. Mm-hmm. So, so a partner is, I don't know, it's fair for a partner to say, I can't do this anymore.
Yes.
And people do.
I think that's actually a really important thing to be clear about, is that you do not owe somebody a relationship because of what they're going through or despite what they're going through or anything like that. And I've said this about other types of relationships on episodes where I'm talking about like, oh, so a loved one might have an eating disorder, or a friend, or how can you support? And something that I say is, you have to have the understanding that it might be too much, and you have to give yourself permission to walk away if you must.
Yeah.
Some people just won't stay, and that is fine. That is okay. Yep. And a lot of things will change within a relationship dynamic if a person goes into recovery. The relationship might not make sense for the recovered version of that person, which we've talked about before, where I think you've seen this a lot in clients where through their recovery, they are...
I mean, the beginning contract, right? The beginning contract doesn't stand. The contract changes. And all of a sudden, ways in which, I mean, I have seen this where the person with the eating disorder was the weak one, was the helpless one, was the flawed one. And then as things started becoming obvious, it was like, oh, we see the balance of the relationship, because there was something going on with the other person also, which was not obvious when the eating disorder was such a big thing and had center stage.
That's right.
And then it's like, oh. And then when we put all of that on the table, sometimes the relationship cannot sustain itself.
That's right. Yeah. Maybe I'm not the broken one here, and I'm not just this like problem. Yeah. Okay. We've talked a lot about relationships and dating. Any advice for me?
Oh, I mean, all I can say at this point is, continuing to live in this newfound ease and expanding it, right? Expanding it. Whether you have, so often I'll say that, when you come out of an eating disorder, you find that, and then we're in the real world with all the imperfections of the mucky world that we live in anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when people think about recovery, they always think about, I get through recovery, and then, I just remember this young boy long ago in the eating disorder program saying, I thought it was one mountain, and then I found that it's a whole range,
It's so true, little boy.
And he wasn't talking about recovery. He was talking about life, He said, I thought that, it was one mountain. I climbed this mountain, and then, life is on the other side. And then he was like, I just discovered it's a whole range. And I thought it was so, I still remember it. I don't know where he is.
It's so important, and it is so unfortunately true, where you kind of come out and you're like, oh, the world, this is going to be so great.
I often say that recovery from an eating disorder is not actually about the eating disorder, right? I mean, it's a funny thing to say, but the eating disorder is a symptom. It's a collection of behaviors I'm doing because I don't know what to do with my emotions.
Yes.
And I don't know what to do with the complexity of the adult world.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So the eating disorder, the compartmentalization and the cocoonness of the eating disorder makes my life really simple. I only have to think about how many minutes I have to bike, or how many miles I have to run, or how many carrots I'm going to eat, or my life is actually quite simplified that way. And then I have to open up to the nuances and the grayness and the, actually the fragility and the unpredictability of adult life. The truth that adult life and the real world is incredibly unpredictable. And even my body is quite fragile, really. And I have to be able to live in it. So all the skills that you learn, or all the way you change your mindset, or I lift my chin, and I start looking at the long game and the big picture, and I build tolerance for that. Those are actually skills for life.
Yeah.
So I'll often say that people who recover from eating disorders have done more work than or all the work that a person needs to do, because I have to live in relation to food, in relation to life, in relation to my body every day. And somebody who recovers from an eating disorder successfully has done all that work, which all those other people out there who didn't have a diagnosis haven't done, because, you can live life in a lesser way.
You can.
You
in
can.
just a sort of, I was talking to a friend about this yesterday, this sort of like getting by and having it feel like ease, but really never getting to that level of connectedness.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. You get out into the real world and you're like, oh no, it's messy out here, Lakshmi.
It is, but you were warned. I told you.
I know you told me. It was still a shock no matter how much you had prepared me. I was still like, oh no. Negative emotions about other things other than my body.
Yeah.
Good thing I have all of these distress tolerance skills. Okay. I think we're going to switch gears.
Yes.
Because I think we've talked a lot about relationship. And so I don't know if there's like an elegant way to do this except to be like, that was the dating and relationship conversation with Lakshmi. And now we're going to we're going to kind of stop it and restart it in another conversation. But maybe we'll take like 2 minutes to just breathe.